Hello, everyone. Thank you, first of all, our guests be with us here. Let me start with a short introduction round. I will introduce you first and myself at the end. And after that, I would like to say a couple of introductory sentences, and then we can continue with the discussion. So let me introduce you our guests. First of all, Kata Baditzné, Pálvölgyi, Associate Professor with Habilitation at the Faculty of Humanities, Institute of Romance Studies, Department of Spanish Language and Literature. Zoltán Pozsár-Szentmiklósy, Associate Professor with Habilitation at the Faculty of Law, Department of Constitutional Law, where he's the Vice Dean for Education and also the head of the Department of Constitutional Law. Endre, Horváth, lecturer at the Bárczi Gusztáv Faculty of Special Needs Education, Institute of Special Needs Education for People with Atypical Behaviour and Cognition. And last but not least, Attila Rausch, Doctor Assistant Professor at here, our Faculty and Institute of Education, and he is also the chair of the Research Ethics Committee. My name is Zoltán Rónay. I am an Associate Professor with Habilitation here at the Faculty in the Institute of Education. And we discussed a lot today and previous days about the AI, the effects of AI on the K-12 generation, the learning and teaching problems. But now we will focus on the higher education sector, and I guess the first trauma appeared at the higher education sector. I guess it's almost 3 years ago, so somewhere in 2023 or. And I remember when my colleague here at the faculty, he was and still is the Vice Dean for Science, texted me as a Vice Dean for Education that something is happening just now and we have to react quickly. And we started to scan how the other universities react on the appearance of ChatGPT, because ChatGPT was the pioneer, at least for the external audience. We met a lot of interesting, sometimes weird reactions. For example, from some very acknowledged Ivy League US universities, which immediately banned the use of AI. Or the most funny thing was the case of Italy, where the whole country shut down and agreed for a very short time to be shut down ChatGPT. So since then, we have had a lot of solutions, and now AI is not a very extreme and new topic. But I guess we are still struggling with lots of problems, and as both the generative artificial intelligence tools and the students became more and more experienced how to use it in research and student work, especially writing essays or tests or anything else. It is also a very interesting, sometimes scaring topic, and we still don't know how to deal with this phenomenon. So first, as a starter, I would like to ask our guests to tell us how artificial intelligence relates to education at your faculty.
So we had and we have many issues which were presented in the last two presentations. We teach our students to use AI tools as a tool, and so we try to teach them, but with the responsibility. So we have a very big issue because our students go to field practice, and at the field practice, they see and learn practice from colleagues, from teachers who uses AI. And many of these cases, these uses are unethical and not based on methodological decisions. And they just copy this practice and bring it back to the faculty when they are preparing lesson plans and things like that. So for us, it's a very big issue to teach them how not to do this and how to use AI tools in education. For example, when they are preparing lesson plans for differentiation, and how can they use AI tools in this situation. And the other part of our problems is related to, for example, essays, online exams, because we noticed that our students have already started to use AI tools in this case, and we already had some issues with final exams and things like that, when we noticed that students are using these tools unethically. So nowadays we are dealing with these issues. And from the other hand, we can say that we are at the beginning of this transition to using AI in research and in education. And we could say that our faculty also is at the beginning of this process, so we don't have very strict tools, rules, and regulations. Now we have one, because of course the university has a global regulation, and also we implemented it in our faculty. But we still have many questions how to do it right. For example, when an educator using AI to create a presentation, how she or he should give a notice to the student, how to tell that this was generated with AI, but based on his or her own content, and not the content was generated, like the illustration or the logo, as you said before. So we don't have strict rules for this, but we are trying to focus on this, and our work group trying to help the educators to deal with this kind of situations.
Maybe I can continue. So from the perspective of the Faculty of Law, I would like to start with our vision. So we just see future lawyers who are very efficient in their work. They can help people who turn to them with their problems, and for that they really need to use in a very efficient way AI tools. But of course they also have to have their knowledge and they have the critical skills in order to assess the results they just get from AI. And the big question is how to reach that goal, how to produce those future lawyers. At the very beginning, in the first semester, our students have a special course planned to make them capable to use all kinds of legal databases. And in the framework, in the syllabus of this course, AI knowledge to some extent is included, but of course this is at the very beginning. So we are, of course, at the beginning of this process. It was mentioned the Rector's Directive, which is a university regulation, kind of a framework. We did not make a special regulation for our faculty. We are lawyers, but we do not like rules that much. So we just established a working group. We have on a regular basis meetings, and we try to identify those areas which will be important for the next step. For example, we're going to have a survey among our students to have a clear information how and which type of AI tools do they use for what kind of tasks. We're going to invite AI professionals like Laszlo and others to train us to share with each other best practices, but we have to plan and discuss a lot. So we are at the beginning.
At my faculty, we also use the same regulation framework, but all the teachers can add their own regulation in a sense that, for example, in their classes, they can ask for more, I mean, on the part of the students. Basically, we want students to declare how they use the AI in the thesis papers, so it's mandatory. And as for the other sort of submissions, it depends on the teacher. I could say a lot about that, but we have a lot of debates about the current form of the thesis papers, because maybe in the future the oral part of the defense should have more actually weight, and it may be feasible because we have an oral defense anyway, but about all the other submissions it's a bit complicated, because in some courses we have a lot of students and not so many teachers, and of course if you want to follow the steps of every student's project, how they got to the results, it's almost impossible. So we have to figure out what to do with course submissions and all the tasks and in-class actually tasks. And the problem I feel now is that there is a huge difference on how teachers face AI use, how teachers think AI should be used, and there is an increasing confidence gap maybe between teachers and students, which I don't think it's positive on the learning process. So we have a lot to do, and we are dealing with a lot of we have a lot of thoughts about how to solve these problems, but we are at the beginning, as the other colleagues said. The other thing I would like to address is the problem of how teachers think AI can be used in their fields, because humanities is highly affected. One of our expertise was academic writing, and of course it's now better done by AI, so the question is whether we should teach students to be very good writers, or does it have sense anymore in the future, how we should do it, how we should deal with it, how many students will need it in the future, or maybe we'll only need like supervisors of AI, so it's a huge issue. And also the problem of many of the courses are in Hungarian, and many of our teachers, when first tried AI, saw how many hallucinations there were and how Hungarian language was maybe not so developed, so they maybe did not look at AI again, because first they said that it was good for nothing, and of course it's very difficult to persuade people that it's a developing field, and maybe now it is better, and maybe it can be used for other things. So we have many issues going on, but I wouldn't like to monopolize all the talk, so maybe Attila, you should.
On a faculty level, I would say that it's very similar to the what Kata has mentioned about the Faculty of Arts and Humanities here for the Faculty of Education and Psychology, but I'm not the best person to talk about on a faculty level, because we have here the commissioner, Dean's Commissioner for Artificial Intelligence here in the person of László Horváth. I would like to focus more on my area, which is research and research ethics. What we see a lot of issues with, and it's related to what you have mentioned regarding, for example, the thesis work or the student projects. So what we see already in terms of, for example, the research ethics permissions, it goes through, so all of the research conducted with humans goes through on with the Research Ethics Committee here. So we have an overview of the recent trends and all the materials related to research. And what we already see is that most of the materials on student work related to theses are already generated with AI. So what is research? So Brent has mentioned that in many topics we leap back to the past with a couple of decades to go back to the original and traditional ways and methods. And I would say we need to go back to the first layer, that how do we define research? And when we see that students are generating their research gap and aim and the research questions with AI, and then they generate questionnaires or interview protocols with AI, maybe they use actual participants at some way, but when they get back the transcript, they will use AI to actually code it, and they write their thesis with AI. So actually, what's left? So maybe the information which they are gathering from real participants is still real and original, but we face a lot of issues because as far as we would like to detect it, we cannot. So we can have suspicions that this questionnaire is completely generated by AI, but we cannot actually prove it, because if it's really good, we actually don't know, so we cannot actually deal with it. So from a research ethical permission perspective, we only check regulations with the GDPR, whether the participants are informed well, the whole procedure is ethically okay, but what's actually behind that research, we don't have the opportunity to judge. So technically, we see a lot of issues on this area. And yes, so we clearly see that this thesis research as a student work and the proof of reaching some level of profession at the end of degree program actually getting outdated and transformed by AI, and it's a huge challenge for us because we don't have the mandation to actually change these regulations. We are the ones with this research ethics committee who are seeing it, and we're trying to report it back sometimes to the supervisors that they need to deal with it. But how can they do it if they are overwhelmed with a lot of students? So actually, that needs to be a change in the whole higher education level if we would like to address this original issue, because there will be some point what we already seen in Laszlo's presentation, that if the whole research evidence in these databases, the papers are generated by AI, then how can we rely on real scientific evidence? So actually, it's a huge challenge from a research ethics perspective.
Thank you very much. And before I put the second round question on the table, let me share you with a short story. A couple of years ago, in a course, students wrote an online test. And one of the questions was about the European Union, so it was a legal-related question, and the answer was really, really stupid. So I didn't understand, and I couldn't imagine how this answer would be compiled. I gave 0 point, went further, next examiner, the same, literally the same answer. There I became suspicious that something is wrong, but probably they sat together and they agreed with this stupid answer. But it repeated and repeated, and then I asked ChatGPT, just typing the same question as it was in the exam, and ChatGPT, voila, said the same. So it was very visible that it is very easily detectable if students use ChatGPT, especially in Hungarian and especially in law-related topics. I don't teach only strictly law-related topics, and later I had the same feeling that the students use ChatGPT because somehow the answers or the wording was not the same as the previous parts, or something was wrong with this answer, but I couldn't get the same, far from the same answer on ChatGPT. So later, I always had the feeling that students can or could use ChatGPT, but I don't have evidences to prove it. So how can you deal with this opportunity? Because as we know well, the AI detectors were, sorry for saying that, nothing. So how can we deal with this phenomenon when we feel that the students use AI, but we cannot prove it?
Well, I think it's very important for teachers to know that AI detectors don't work. So I don't really like it when I hear that an educator used it, because you cannot upload student work without his or her consent to any of these platforms. And of course, and I also mentioned this confidence issue, so I don't really like this I don't think this should be the way. I'd rather set assignments in which either AI is important and should be used, but in a meaningful way, or assignments in which AI cannot be used. But I don't really think in the future it might change. I mean, my opinion might change, but at the moment I don't think the way will be like, well, I will prove you used AI and then I will catch you and things like that. So I think that we should reshape our idea of submissions and knowledge checking, and also the way students build knowledge, because we are in, it's not the future, it's the present, so I think we should get used to it and start thinking about what to do. I know it's not the same for all the courses, and maybe not all the faculties will have the same issues, and they might have different solutions, but I think it's high time we should think about this and not rather catching students. And I don't think it's a good idea anyway, because as we have mentioned, there is no tool, and we cannot like prove it, so it's a really uncomfortable situation anyway. And I don't think it leads to, but maybe the others have different opinions on that.
Thank you. So I remember when we just introduced at our faculty a new form what students have to submit together with their thesis, and on that form they just mark what types and for what reason they use some AI tools. When we just discussed that form and the reason for that with our colleagues, there was a scare on the faces. What can we do with that? Is there any possibility to investigate what is the origin of the text? And our answer was, of course not. I agree with you totally. So I think we have to restructure a bit our focus, and what was mentioned before by the colleagues, that of course after the submission of the thesis, if there is an oral discussion about the topics, there is a possibility to change ideas and to have a picture of what is in the head of the students you are talking with. But for the future, I don't think thesis is a good tool in order to evaluate anything. So maybe we should think about portfolios or other more innovative forms of final evaluation of the studies. And in practical sense, I mean, during the semester, there are many possibilities to include AI tools, as you mentioned, in our practical work. For example, we try at some seminars to ask students to solve the problem by using AI tools, and then to criticize and analyze why was wrong the answer given by AI, and that capacity or that capability could be useful for them for the future. But of course, this is a testing of more methods during this process, and of course, it's a never-ending story.
I strongly agree with the previous thoughts. I cannot say much more because we have the same issues. But for example, portfolios. We already had one portfolio which was totally generated with AI, and it was very bad because also the self-reflections was generated, and the students cannot defend it. So it was a very inconvenient situation. But maybe if we try to show the students that what they miss if they outsource this type of work, what they miss, this can help to understand why not to do this. To show them that they will be unable to do this without AI, and this maybe can be a solution. And we already had last year the same situation with the exam, and it was an open-ended question, and we saw that all the answers was so far the same, but it was totally something which were not taught to the student. because ChatGPT didn't use those sources which we chose. So we know that this was generated, but we couldn't prove it. So it was a very hard situation. And we changed this exam in this year, and we tried to chain the answers in this open-ended questions. Like the first answer should be used in the second, and the student should have reason why she or he answered those things. Now we try to implement this in this case in this course, but it's just just trying to experimenting with this, but we don't know how to do it well, of course, because we are at the beginning in this. And regarding the thesis, we also started this year, not faculty-wide, but in some cases, when we know that some part of the thesis was generated with AI because the consistent, the wording, and any parts of the text was so far different from the from the whole thesis, and also there were fake authors and things like that. So we cannot prove it, but we, at the defense, we deliberately give questions. The student have to demonstrate that he or she understands what he or she wrote and why, and we started to focusing on this way. But it was only in 1 or 2 cases when we had this feeling.
I will use this one. Thank you very much for mentioning, for example, the students' responsibility at the very end. So if we think about on this student product or outcome level, so checking their work and taking responsibility for the outcome or submission, whether it's any product, so whether it's a portfolio, whether it's a much larger work such as a thesis, they need to be transparent, and they need to take responsibility for the content which they submitted. And I believe it's very important to take time on that, so to make sure that at least don't over rely on the outcome and check what they submit. But I would like to go back to this, you mentioned that was your idea, that to helping students to see why they are here in this university. So they pay a tuition or they are here with a scholarship, but anyway, they are here to learn and develop, and not just for the degree or for the paper or certification, because if they are just here for the certification, they will use AI tools as they would plagiarize in the past. So I believe that's what's really important. To every lecturer should change their requirements and their sessions, their classes, in terms of showing the students that they can learn and how can they learn, and showing them if they use this shortcut with AI, they will not develop their skills, they will not develop their attitude, responsibility, and autonomy in certain areas, and therefore they won't be good professionals in their future career. And if we can present this idea, this term to them, I believe it can help, but not for all the students. So and also not for all the subjects, because we see that there are different programs with different number of students, and when we see students in groups of hundreds, we cannot really manage that so well as we can do it in a group of 15 or 20 students in a seminar session. So I believe it's an issue for all faculties and all programs throughout the university and throughout the entire higher education, which we need to face right now. And that's why I mentioned earlier that we need to go back to the original idea, just to circle back to this research and the problem with research ethics these days, that they need to know why, if they want to take out on a research project, such as we have this TDK or TDK, the student research work here mostly for Hungarian students, that this is actually as TDK defines, is an extra activity, so extracurricular activity, because they want to investigate something, they want to learn and develop their skills as a researcher, as an independent researcher too. And this is what we can do for that type of works which related to this original thesis project and for these research and development works. But for many other submissions, I believe that this changing the curriculum and requirements and the whole procedure as they will go to a product or portfolio work or even student presentations these days, because we don't have, don't live in a world when we can imagine that students are not generating PowerPoint slides without AI these days. So actually, they can generate the slides and the transcripts already. So even a presentation is not a completely traditional way of an assessment. So I believe that showing them the way how to develop, learn, can help a lot, but it would require a whole change for the entire programs and for the entire university, basically.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting to follow all your comments, because they were very similar. It is, I think, I was just wondering that our faculties usually employed different approaches, or not all the faculties. That, for example, I can have experiences from two faculties, Faculty of Law, where I was a student and teacher in the last century, and of course from here. And now it seems AI help us to be on the same platform, because we started to use the same approaches, especially during the seminars, during the semester. But as was also important to mention the problem with the thesis or the dissertation, and what I mentioned that I couldn't prove, but I realized the use of AI was during writing the thesis. So when I was the supervisor and I read from time to time the development of the thesis, and then I couldn't do anything else, just send the comment. I don't know what was happening here, but somehow the wording is weird. Please try to reword it. And I did it many times, and finally the student, I think, get bored with my endless comments and started to write something which was very visibly a human being product. But what can we do instead of thesis? And I have a more provocative question. What can we do with the doctoral dissertations? Because doctoral dissertations, of course, it can be a good answer to shift our approach to the so-called portfolio dissertation, which is the summary of already published papers. Footnote, I don't think it's a dissertation, but it's my very old consideration. But I already experienced a well-known QY paper as a reviewer, that the paper was written by AI. Furthermore, I already get a review from a Q1 paper reviewer, which was visibly written by AI. So how can we avoid AI use on a higher level? For example, in terms of PhD dissertation, or during the PhD process, I mean the writing papers, etc. Do you have any idea?
I don't have so many ideas different from the ones I have expressed, but in the case of all these submissions, now we know what AI is good for, and of course there is a list of activities that are permitted. So the thing is whether we should widen always this scope and add other activities that can be carried out, because when it's visibly written by AI, I don't know if it's referred to the content as well or only the style, because stylistic correction and grammar correction is, for example, at our our faculty is permitted, which was, again, a very controversial issue because earlier it formed part of the evaluation. So earlier we got, like, I remember being evaluated not only based on the content, but also the style and grammar and accuracy. So this has changed now, and now we don't tend to do it because as stylistic and grammar correction is accepted, then we don't actually think more about it, so it's not taken into consideration when evaluating. But the question is whether we should widen this and add other activities, and it's a very hard issue because, again, many questions arise, for example, the authorship or what's actually the work of the student then. So that's why I again tend to change the system and not to have dissertations like this, but it's going to be maybe more difficult than in the case of thesis because this word is like a more reduced one, and maybe it will be even harder to change, but I don't know whether you have different ideas on this.
Well, it's a very, very difficult question. I have no answers, of course. What is in my mind, for the first moment, I would say, in the case of a doctoral thesis, if the supervision is taken seriously, if there is let's say, a group of colleagues who know about the progress of the candidate, if the candidate is part of this set of conversations, then we might have some safeguards in order to put the candidate to the right track. But the more difficult question is probably what to do in science in general. So I think we need many discussions in all scientific fields in order to identify what we use AI for, what is important to remain human, what do we expect from a published article, what are the standards for those articles, books, or any other papers or products in the scientific language. So I think there's a real restructuring phase of our scientific way of communication.
Yes, I think the same. And regarding the thesis and the dissertation process, maybe the process should be changed, like the way we should put some milestones in the process where the candidate demonstrate that he or she understands, he or she develop the results, and to walk through the whole process and not just see the product at the end of the process. Maybe this can ensure that this is a scientifically based process where the candidate does or did the research work. But from the product, we cannot say it, I guess, and we cannot do anything to prevent the use of AI, and maybe we shouldn't prevent. Maybe, as you already said, we should change the whole process. In the case of thesis, it should be the same. And for example, we at our faculty, we have already had some debates or some thinking about it. How should we change this process, like in this way, to ensure that that this was scientifically based. And there is a big question in this case, but who is responsible for the use of AI, the student or the supervisor? Because the supervisor who is see what's happening, who monitoring, who helping, who helps the students. So it's also a question of responsibility. And this is why are big debates on this, for example, among us to see who is the responsible, for example, for a totally fake portfolio or a totally fake thesis. The student itself or herself, himself, or the supervisor also have some responsibility. Of course, he or she has, but it's still a question that how to approach this ethical question.
I would like to connect on that. So what I would like to emphasize that awarding a PhD happens after completing a doctoral school. And I would like to write the school with capital letters from now on to emphasize the whole procedure as the doctoral students get to the level of acquiring a PhD. Because what is PhD about? Actually a license to carry research individually or independently in the future, right? So it means that the committee actually sees that the candidate proved that they have the skills, knowledge on their field of science, which makes them technically this PhD level scientist. And only evaluating this by just one product and one period or one status with maybe we have this home defense and then this real open defense or debate. This is still the evaluation of only one product, which can be generated by AI, or many parts can be generated by AI. But for example, we are not living in a metaverse, so you cannot send your agent instead of yourself to an international conference to build connections or participate in a community, or not yet. We don't know. Maybe my comments will be outdated very soon. Anyway, so for example, organizing events, conferences are also part of this job, or actually teaching, lecturing, working with students, participating in discussions, workshops, classes, doctoral courses. So there can be a lot of activities where they can develop and learn, and they can get these milestones which you have mentioned. And of course, the supervisor can guide he or she on this way, and also him or her on this way, and also as the doctoral school has many lecturers and many professionals on this way who can supervise the students in many perspectives to show in methodological courses, in other activities, in the complex examination period, how to work with AI in an ethical and responsible way. And actually, I believe that if this is not just about this one status, one period, and this one defense and one product, the PhD can be a very safe from AI. All the activities are challenged, of course, publishing and also figuring out the research questions, as I have mentioned earlier. So there are serious issues from an ethical and professional perspective. But I still believe that if we modify this a bit, and so taking on a PhD is not mandatory. So it's I think it's if someone is really interested on their field of science, they should be interested on finding a research gap, should be interested on figuring out their own questions, their own ideas, and actually there's a whole system which leads these candidates to cheat, I believe, because they have this publish or perish initiative and many other pressures on them as they move towards, because here in Hungary we don't have too good scholarship for PhD students, so many of our students, or actually all of them, are working besides the doctoral school, so they have a very limited time, for example, to conduct their research. And with this time pressure, there's always comes ChatGPT, Claude, and these shortcuts. And actually, it's not good, because I believe there are many candidates who don't, if they don't see this pressure, maybe they actually take their time to figure out research questions. They really want to analyze the data. They just can't do it because they need to do it within a few hours, and these new data analyzers tools are actually quite good. So why would they bother learning new ways to analyze data, learning new methods? So actually, this is a whole system issue which I see in this PhD level, and we need to deal with it because the whole integrity of science and our field are depending on it.
Thank you very much. And last question is coming because we painted a very dark picture. So I would like to close this discussion with a less negative attitude. Do you see the positive or the benefits of AI in the education at the university? Because I see, but I don't want to make you biased. So I would like to ask you, especially faculty related. So how can you improve your learning and teaching environment or teaching attitudes, teaching practices with the help of AI?
I think there are many answers to that, but I always think about AI as a tutor, which is a very, very great opportunity now, because if it is used correctly, then you can learn a lot. And just an example, it's a 24/7 tutor. So actually, when used correctly by students, it can be a very good partner in education. Also, we work together with a Finnish university, and we do the same parallelly just to see how it works. And we do something very similar to what has already been mentioned about challenging students to use AI and use it critically. And I think it's a very positive experience now, because for certain specific tasks that are going to be demanded in the future for them as part of their job, we see how it can be assisted by AI, and we see when it is useful and when it's not. And I think it's a very good, like a teaching lab at the university, and it's a very good opportunity to see together with students how AI will shape their future and how they can rely on it. And I think it's, I would say it's a very positive experience, and I see many positive sides of it, but of course you should deal with it, and you should start dealing with it, because as I have mentioned, it's the present and not the future. So I wouldn't like to add more ideas, but I have many, many good experiences.
Thank you. Well, if AI would existed, let's say 15 years ago, I would finish much easier my PhD and other tests. So I think many positive sides. For example, one of those are the language barriers. So of course, if there are important cases in languages you don't speak, AI could help you to understand those cases, which could be very important in legal science and in comparing different legal approaches to the same problem. The same goes with summarizing cases and the practice of certain legal fields. Of course, it can help you in drafting a legal argumentation, but all these benefits could work if you have your own knowledge and you have the skill in order to analyze what you've got. Is it real or not, and what is needed to be corrected.
In our case, we also have many good examples in the use of AI. For example, because of the lack of AI, let's say, or the lack of knowledge, like AI cannot use or reason on methodological basis. And when we try to demonstrate to the students, when they try to create a differentiated text, for example, students with learning disability, and if they don't give a very specific instruction for the AI, obviously the result will be very bad. And this is in a good situation to teach them why not to use AI and why not to use in this case and like this, and what does it mean to know the skills of the students and give a very appropriate description about the level of the skills, and how can you create a specific text, for example, for one student with a specific skill structure. So in this case, AI is very good because it can demonstrate how hard it is and how much methodological knowledge needed to do this, and also it can be a time-saving helper, a good tool, if you know how to write a good prompt and how to ask a good product in this case. And also in research, for example, I'm finishing just my PhD thesis. So I'm also using AI in many cases, but not to create obviously text and content, but I'm using, for example, R program for statistical analysis, and I do hundreds of analysis. And for example, I use AI to create short R program codes, which I can obviously write myself, but for me it's 1 hour, but for AI is 5 minutes. And for example, it helps me a lot of time. And obviously, this type of AI use will be presented in the dissertation because it's just a tool which was used. But it's a time saving if you use as a tool.
Thank you. I would like to agree with all of the remarks before. So what I would like to highlight maybe is that boosting productivity is a very good thing. And we can actually teach basic skills to our students, as I would like to also maybe differ with a short story of my studies as a bachelor student, when we had a class when we calculated t-tests, z-tests, and other statistical probes in a paper and pencil format. I like mathematics, so it was not a big issue for me, but there were many peers of mine who hated that class. And when we had this, in the next semester, we had a statistics course when we started to use SPSS. And actually, calculating an independent simple t-test is we just need to click this in, and what a helpful tool. We can spare a lot of time, but we actually understood the basic principles behind that. We had the skills, as you have mentioned, writing code for the R is something which you need to know. What are you doing? How can AI help you? And if you use it well and responsibly, it can be a really great tool in your hands. But you need to take responsibility for the outcome as well. So this is why I really hate these data analyzing AI tools, which students use a lot, because they cannot spot the mistakes, because they are not are the ones who doing the job. They are just putting these numbers into a black box, and they hope for the best. And actually, they cannot check their work, because if they check AI to check the AI's works, actually, if you tell the tool that recalculate or do something, so they will do it. But there's huge issues with that. So if they already acquire these basic skills, they can boost their productivity. And if they check rigorously the outcome, taking responsibility, they are very transparent about how they use, and they are very aware of the limits of these AI models, it can be a very great tool, which I mentioned earlier in my presentation, that the limit is your imagination when you create new things. So, for example, from a visual perspective, the publication of this new GPT model for picture and illustration generation is a huge leap towards, and I believe it's a really great tool if you are already aware of the basic principles of designing, for example, a concept map or a poster or something, and you have a clear idea what you would like to see, then you can prompt the AI model quite well to see that outcome. But if you over rely on AI to just put out something and, that's okay, then you will never learn a thing of it. So I believe that it can be still a great tool. I still have one comment which would lead back to the dark side of it. So therefore I will leave that out for the next conference or for the discussion maybe after this panel, because I really want to share this in the future, but I will put the microphone away, because that would lead back to the dark side of AI.
I really appreciate that. So we have run out of our time a little, so let me not to open the floor for the audience and just have some concluding remarks as a takeaway. So what is more, of course, we are struggling with AI, and it has new good and bad sides. But what was the most important lesson I learned from our discussion, the importance of education and pedagogy, especially education. So as an originally lawyer and now education scientist, I always believe that sanctions, punishment is just the ultimate solution. So we have to avoid a situation where we have to use sanctions. Therefore, we should educate people, including ourselves, how to use ethically and professionally AI. And we also can educate not only with these regular forms our student, but using consciously AI, as for example I do, and I always put there how I used AI for this PPT, for this I don't know, even if my application for the director position, I used AI, and there was the attachment about this. So thank you for being here. I guess it was a very fruitful discussion, and it offers up lots of opportunity to think further in the close future. Thank you very much.